Recording live from northwest suburbs of Minneapolis. This is Twin Cities Affiliates. I'm the host and creator, Coop DeVille, aka LaShawn. And on this episode, I just want to talk about what's been going on in the Twin Cities. Those that know me, I'm born and raised here, grew up in the suburb of Brooklyn Park, which is right next to Brooklyn Center, which is a suburb of Minneapolis. And what's been going on with the killing of Daunte Wright and the response from the people with the rioting and looting. So I want to, this episode is going to be titled, How Did We Get Here, Twin Cities? And probably a subtitle, What is Minnesota Nice? I'm gonna be getting into that. And so before I even get into that, I want to play a clip. I want to play a clip of, well, you'll watch it, then I'll explain it to you. Okay, if those that don't know, that was a clip from 5 years ago in April, which is, this day is coming up, was 5 years ago when Prince died. And that was the night that Prince died, and the Twin Cities all paid respects and came together to celebrate the life and the legacy of the legend Prince, who's from Minneapolis. Now, in that video, and I remember at that time, the Twin Cities was all together, and we were in the streets. We were at First Ave. We were going to all these celebrations and events for Prince. We were all going to Paisley Park, where he lived, at his house, and paying our respects, going to Graffiti Bridge, all of this stuff. Us, Twin Cities, all representing, wearing purple, listening to Prince songs and showing love to each other. The Twin Cities was all together 5 years ago. So how did we get here? How did we get here, Twin Cities? How did we get to us being at ends with each other? Well, I'm gonna let you know how we got here. So just put into perspective that 5 years ago, like I just showed you in that clip, that we were all together, right? For the most part, on face value. So that was in April of 2016. Okay, later on that year in 2016, in July, Philando Castile gets killed by a cop on video, and he's telling the cop that he has a license, he's a licensed gun owner. And we all saw what happened, and we saw him die right in front of our eyes on video, in front of his family and the little girl in the car. So no justice for that, right? Okay, next year, 2017, Officer Muhammad Noor kills an Australian Caucasian woman named Justine Damon in July of 2017. Officer Noor is doing a 12-year sentence for what happened to Miss Justine Damon. Last year in May, we all see the video of George Floyd, who was killed by Officer Chauvin, in which the whole world saw the video. And it caused the uproar, not just in our city, but all over the world. Now here we are again in April 2021, and we have another situation. This time a young Black man, 20 years old, Daunte Wright, gets killed. And so how did we get here, Twin Cities? So now we have people rioting, looting, people upset, people yelling, and people, at each other's throats. So what happened to the Minnesota Nice? Minnesota, we've always tried to act like we are different than all these other places in this country. And as I have grown, and I'm 41 years old, I have learned that Minnesota is really no different than any other state. And it took me a while. It took me almost over half of my life to understand this. So this is how we got here, because of passive aggressive covert racism. This is what Minnesota and a lot of northern Midwest states have practiced through the years, especially here in Minnesota. Minnesota Nice is passive aggressive covert racism. And in those that don't know what I'm talking about, I'm going to read the definition of covert racism. Just give me a minute here. I'm sorry. Okay. Covert racism is a form of racial discrimination that is disguised and subtitled rather than public or obvious. Concealed in the fabric of society, covert racism discriminates against individuals through often evasive or seemingly passive methods. Covert racially biased decisions are often hidden or rationalized with an explanation that society is willing to accept. These racial biases cause a variety of problems that work to empower the suppressors while diminishing the rights and powers of the oppressed. Covert racism often works subliminally, and often much of the discrimination is being done subconsciously, sometimes. It originates instead in discrimination against poor segments that simply happens to disproportionately affect individuals by race. And if you are a true Minnesota person, you understand that this is what Minnesota has practiced through a long time. Now, the racism down south in your states like Mississippi and Louisiana and Alabama and Tennessee, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Texas, Arkansas, that type of racism down there is the opposite. It's in your face. People wear their emotions on their sleeve. If a so-called white person doesn't like a Black person, they'll let them know, and vice versa. And then me personally, since my family is from Mississippi, I've seen things in life work accordingly. Hey, we don't like your kind. You guys stay over there. We'll stay over here, and we'll just go about our way. Me personally, and I think a lot of my people would respect that type of racism over the passive aggressive convert racism, because at least I know who I'm dealing with. And then I can adjust accordingly. But if it's somebody with the passive aggressive convert racism, that means that they're cool with you in person and they yuck and smile in your face, but in behind your back, they're talking about you because of your race, or they're doing things that's going to harm you or affect you in some kind of way. And I don't care what type of so-called Black person you are. You can be a so-called Black person that's so pro-Black, or you can be a Black person that's trying to fit in and you're surrounded most of your life by so-called white people. You have some kind of effect when you are watching these injustices happen to people that look like you. And it affects you in some kind of way. You might not express it. Those that, surround themselves with a lot of so-called white people or races outside of your race, and you might say to certain things, and you try to live your life to be accepted to a certain extent, but it does something to you when you keep watching CNN or MSNBC or Fox or the news stations keep playing videos of a George Floyd, and you keep watching us being harmed like that. And then, not to say that this, sometimes white people don't get killed by cops or whatever. We don't see that though on repeat on video. So what does that do to us psychologically? What does that do to us emotionally? But bringing it back to Minnesota, the passive aggressive convert racism is very, very dangerous. And if those that disagree with what I'm saying or have a problem with what I'm saying, I recommend you watch a documentary that I had to watch for a company I was working for. It's a documentary, I can't talk. It's a documentary on YouTube called Jim Crow of the North. And it explains how the Twin Cities was built off of redlining and racial covenants. And then you see the effects of that. So just real quick, those that don't know, and people that love being from Minnesota or living in Minnesota, because some, I've read comments of acquaintances and people that comment on some of my acquaintances' pages, and a lot of the rhetoric or a lot of the mindset is this area was all good until other people came in, and then now the area's changed and it's bad and it's gone down. But if you look at the history, when a lot of so-called Black people were coming into the Twin Cities, moving here from down south, which they call the Great Migration, we had our own communities. We had the Rondo community. We had this community in South Minneapolis we had our own economic base. We had our own businesses. We had our own grocery stores. We had our own churches. We had our own law practices. We were living in our communities, not bothering anybody. And here in the Twin Cities, and just like anywhere else in the country, that's why I said Minnesota is no different. They built freeways through these Black communities that was thriving, and then a community like Rondo lost a lot of its economic base, and then a lot of Black people were disproportionate, and then they had to scatter, and some had to leave the state, and some tried to find areas where they can live. So you have to really educate yourself and really understand this. And I didn't understand this until I got older, a little bit older, but I understood a little bit because even though I'm a suburban kid, I grew up in a Black church in St. Paul, in the Rondo community. So I always had some kind of knowledge of the Rondo community. But watch that documentary and it really explains things. But it's just so sad because we have been told about Minnesota nice. So what is Minnesota nice? Minnesota nice, does that for everybody? Is that really truly for everybody, or is that for a certain group of people? Minnesota Nice is, again, convert racism is a blanket that covers all kind of racial tension and to silence the cries that a lot of Blacks and other people of color that have dealt with things in this city, in the history of the city. Those of you that might follow me on social media during Black History Month, I explained and I did research on the Minneapolis Sound that a lot of us thought that it was Prince that created it. He was one of the pioneers, but what influenced Prince and Morris Day and Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis and people like that that are from here was groups that came before them. And we don't hear a lot about them because they couldn't play in certain areas in the Twin Cities. They were blackballed to play at certain white establishments. But these were great artists and great groups. So, like I said, it's deep in the fabric of the Twin Cities. And it's just a rude awakening. It's a wake-up call. You know, Paul Mooney, I love Paul, I always quote Paul Mooney. I don't want to curse on it, so I'm not going to curse, but he has a quote saying, everybody gets, every so-called Black person gets a wake-up call, a wake-up Black person call, meaning you think that you're doing the right thing and you're following the rules and you'll be okay and everything like that, but you get a wake-up call and then they let you know who you are. That poor brother that was a lieutenant, I think in Virginia, that got pulled over. I felt really sorry for him because he's serving the country, he's in his uniform, he's a lieutenant. He's thinking that he was going to get some kind of respect. But no, they treated him like they'll treat anybody else that looks like him. And this is what's so sad. And those so-called white people who claim that they're not racist, you guys have to understand this. You have to understand like what this does to us. And for you to understand it, it's going to make you uncomfortable. You have to become uncomfortable. Now, if you are a so-called white person and you don't care and you want to live in your truth and you want to be hatred or racist towards me, I don't, now as I gotten older, I don't want to try to change your mind because it's a waste of time to try to change your mind. But these are the things that we have to deal with. We have to get our wake-up calls. How many, you know, and let me just dig deeper into it in Minnesota life. How, you know, to some of the white, so-called white friends I have or white acquaintances that follow me on here, how many times have, you know, growing up, maybe when you were in high school in your early 20s, when you were going to clubs and bars and stuff like that, how many times were you with a so-called Black friend or a Black coworker or a Black acquaintance and you guys were bar hopping and you try to get into a bar, try to get into a club, and then they say everybody's good, but then they make some kind of lame excuse why the brother or the sister can't come in. His pants are too baggy or whatever, and he's dressed just like everybody else. And then people look at the brother like he doesn't know how to dress. That's passive aggressive racism. These are the things that we've had to deal with. I can share, I don't know how many stories. I remember, you know, I'll share one incident. I remember one time a so-called white girl that I was cool with was having a going away get together. She was moving to Dallas, I think. And we all met at Red Dragon. And, you know, we was having drinks, having a good time, group of us. And then we was gonna go to, I think Bar Abilene in Uptown? Make a long story short, we were bar hopping, everybody went over there. I had on, everybody just has on plain clothes, jeans and a t-shirt. I had jeans and a white V-neck with I think a denim jacket. And then I had a baseball cap. I wasn't allowed to come in because I had a baseball cap with a straight brim. It was a brand new baseball cap. But yet there was all kind of people inside Bar Abilene with baseball caps, but because mine was straight, which that's how it comes when you buy it, it's a straight brim baseball cap, I couldn't be allowed in. But they make it seem like because they don't allow straight brim hats, baseball caps. So my night, and I still wanted to, celebrate my friend having her going away, get together. So I sucked it up and I walked all the way to my car just to put my cap in the car to come back. But while I was doing that, I was angry. So these are and that's just one story. I know so many Black Minnesotan people have the same similar stories. So this is what I'm talking about passive aggressive convert racism, because little stuff like that, and it can be stuff on a larger scale, doesn't get dealt with. So it gets all shoved under the blanket of Minnesota nice, along with how we're policed, the differences, seeing how other people are policed and they get justice, like the officer Mohammed Noor in the Justine Damon case. We see that, and then we're just supposed to keep taking that in, and that's what we've been doing. We keep taking it in, taking it in, taking it in. Well, if you keep doing stuff that you put under the blanket of Minnesota nice turns into Minnesota nightmare. And rioting and looting is wrong. And I wish that my people, well, let me back up, because it's not just my people that are out there, but just in general, I wish my people weren't out there rioting and looting. But they're angry. They feel like it's hopeless. It's mostly the younger generation. They feel like there's no hope. So it's chaos. And so now Minnesota nice, which we're supposed to believe that that's what Minnesota was based off of and everything, now it's turned into we are the eye of the world now. And people are wondering what's going on in Minnesota, which we had national attention just 5 years ago, like I said earlier, with Prince's death and us all coming together. But what's so funny is a lot of those people that were out chanting Prince, and a lot of, I'm not going to say a lot, some of so-called white people that was out there championing Prince and coming together are some of the same people that are talking bad about people that look like Prince. Talking bad about Dante Wright, who looked similar to Prince. So what that tells us is you like what we produce, you like our culture, but deep down, you go to your corner and you hold on to what benefits you, and you don't show love and return back. So another thing that's disturbing is we're dealing with the George Floyd case, and things were somewhat calming down. And then we made national attention just 2 weeks ago with the NCAA tournament with Minnesota native Jalen Suggs, who had a wonderful tournament and hit a game-winning shot in the Final Four to go to the championship. And then we had another Minnesota native with Paige Beckers from plays for University of Connecticut, that's from Hopkins High School. And the wonderful run that she had, and all the things that she was doing. And then also assistant coach Jared Nunes, who was just on the show last week, a Minnesota native who's done a lot of work for Baylor University, and they just won the men's NCAA championship. These are the things that we were supposed to champion, because we were getting national attention on that. But it gets overshadowed and it gets ruined by what just happened. So this is how we got here, Twin Cities, and it breaks my heart, because I'm born and raised here, and I've always loved being from here and everything. And every time I go out of town, I represent this. I make sure that I have some kind of clothing that has either a Minnesota sports team or the state of Minnesota or something, and I always represent no matter where I go. I don't care if I'm in New York, I'm in LA, when I go to Jamaica with my wife, where her family's from, I don't care. When I go to Toronto, all of that, I always represent the Twin Cities, but it just breaks my heart what's going on. And now seeing it being Minnesota Nice passive aggressive racism to overt racism. And it just shows that we're just like anywhere else. Anywhere else. So, you know, how can we fix it? What is the solution? Again, it breaks my heart to see the rioting and looting. But first, I want to address my people, so-called Black people. What I've learned and what I've come to terms is we cannot change other people's minds about us. We've done that for so long, and most of my life I've tried to carry myself in the hopes that I can influence a so-called white person's mind and how they think about me and think about my people. But you know, they're going to think, and again, I'm just generalizing because I don't mean all, but I'm just generalizing. They're going to think and believe what they want to. And I can't, and I had to learn this, I can't spend my lifetime and I can't spend my time trying to convince somebody to treat me with decency and being a human and treat me with respect. Like, that's not our job to do that. Now, yes, in certain platforms and certain things in life, we have to do that. Like if your job or you trying to do certain things on a platform that you have to work with other races, yeah, I get that. But overall, it's a waste of time to try to convince somebody to respect you and have them see you the way you want to be seen and respected. It's a lost cause. So what we can do is what we can change, what we can control. And what we can control is how we treat each other. Come together and how we treat each other. And coming together, we have to understand that there's going to be differences. There's going to be differences when we come together. We're going to have religious differences, spiritual differences. We're going to have political differences. We're so divided. We're divided between Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative. We're divided by the older generation and the younger generation. We're divided by old school hip hop, young school hip hop, old school music, young school music, class. We're just so divided. Even in the streets, we're divided by this gang and that gang and all kind of stuff. We're just so divided. We need to know, we need to go back to what we were doing before we were brought to this country, when we used to be together and we used to be royal and we knew how to treat each other. So these are the things that we need to focus on, because we can control that. Nobody else can control how we view each other and how we treat each other. We have the power to do that. So when we greet each other, when we see each other, greet each other with the kindness, knowing how to support each other, learn about each other's businesses or movements, and learn how to be in a positive light, not to follow a narrative that we didn't create and trying to do it to fit into and have society accept us. We need to hold each other to a narrative that we create. Don't go to college to get a degree because it's a narrative that other races or so-called white people have said that. Go to college and get a degree to better yourself first, not to get a degree and because somebody else said it. Do it for yourself, do it for your people, and express that. Because what happens is when we hold each other to other standards, it causes us, when we hold each other to other people's standards and follow a narrative that wasn't ours, then we become individuals and we hang out as individuals. And then this is where we start clashing with each other. So these are the things that our people need to do. We need to change the way we think and how we treat each other. That's the things that we can control. For so-called white people who claim to not be racist, or, you know, and again, I go back to some of my shows, I explain the true definition of racist is somebody that loves their race. That don't necessarily, the true definition, that doesn't necessarily mean you hate somebody else. It means that you love yourself. The ist, the suffix of the word is, means that you have the expertise of something. Someone that's a pianist doesn't hate a violinist. Someone that's a scientist doesn't hate a chemist. So the real etymology definition of that word is someone that loves the race. But on face value, the definition for so-called white people that claim not to be racist, and you want to make a difference, and you love Minnesota so much, what has to happen is you guys have to be uncomfortable, and you guys have to be calling out the people that are racist or are doing certain things, and you need to stand up to them. You need to overcome what's beneficial to you and what's comfortable to you to stick up for what's right. If you're a person that claims not to be, now if you are a so-called white person and you are either biased or you just don't like us or you just don't care, me personally, I have no problem with that. As long as no harm is done to my people and you don't cross lines, I have no problem with that. But like I said, I'm talking to the ones that claim to be decent people. And I've had some former classmates and teammates that I played with in high school, and people, you know, that I used to hang out with, so-called white people that have reached out to me this past week to check on me and to see if everything's all right, and they're praying and, you know, all that. So I appreciate that, but it's more than just doing that, because that's easy to call somebody, see if they're okay. Like I said, you guys have to make yourself uncomfortable if you really care and have a love for our people that are struggling. You have to really practice Minnesota nice. So my heart, you know, and I was gonna make this video earlier on this week, but my emotions were so high and I didn't want to come on here, because if I would have came on here at the beginning of the week, it probably would have been a different tone. Even though I'm still angry and I'm still hurt and I'm still upset, but it would have been a different tone. And yeah, it just would have been a whole different video. But this is where we are. This is where we are now. And now Minnesota has a dark cloud over it. So I'm praying that my people, well, I keep saying my people. I don't want to, the people that are out there protesting, first of all, that are protesting peacefully, I want to say I appreciate you guys, because you guys are in the front lines. But those that are getting in the way of the peaceful message and the peaceful protesting, I just wish that you guys would stop and we can come together on a more positive and different way. And I know some people might disagree with that, and I understand the disagreement, but I'm praying for that. And Minnesota, Twin Cities, y'all have to do better. If Minnesota Nice is a real thing, then it's time to show it. And the show Minnesota Nice is not to be comfortable. Because if we're going to keep Minnesota Nice of how it's been, it's just going to get worse. And Minnesota Nice, again, is going to be continued as Minnesota Nightmare. So I know I've been rambling, I've been talking along, but I had to get this out. I had to vent this out because I just hate seeing videos over and over of us being mistreated. Like, I don't even watch them anymore because it psychologically does stuff. And like, it does something when I'm, the other day I was holding my son's, in my arms, and I was just shaking because I was so mad and just looking and having all these thoughts. Like, what am I going to tell him when he grows up and all of this stuff? And I remember the talks that I had when I was a kid with my parents, and I had like a grown man conversation when I was like 10 years old. So yeah, it's just craziness. So Twin Cities, we have to do better. Minnesota Nice, if it's a real thing, it needs to stand up, and it needs to be the shield. But so far, Minnesota Nice has been failing. And this is coming from a person who loves and still loves being from the Twin Cities. So I hope this video was helpful for those that want to get more information. Again, watch that documentary, Jim Crow of the South, or I'm sorry, I said the South, Jim Crow of the North. I said Jim Crow of the South. It's called Jim Crow of the North. I don't know why I said that. Please watch that documentary. And yeah, hopefully this video was helpful and people can take it and use it as a tool to get information and knowing how to treat each other better. All right. Till next episode, I'm out. This is Twin City Affiliates. All right, later.